Right, hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another Training for Hiking live Q&A. My name is Rowan Smith. I am the founder of Summit Strength, and today we are answering your questions about training for hiking. Now, if you haven't come to one of these streams before, you haven't checked it out, essentially what we're going to be doing is if you are on live, if you have any particular questions you want covered around training, around physical preparation for hiking or anything like that, you can simply just pop it in the chat and I'll do my best to help. On top of that, I have a number of different pre-prepared questions that have been sent through prior to this, which I'm going to be working through as well. So today's stream will probably go for about 40, 45 minutes, something like that, depending on how many people come on live and any questions that may come through. Now, before we get into the questions themselves, though, I do want to do a quick little announcement. And some people may have seen this already. But essentially, this week, I am doing a big enrollment drive for my signature program, the Online Summit program. Now, essentially, what I do all day, every day, is I help hikers all around the world, help them get fit, strong, and resilient for their adventures. And I do this through our online personal training services. And the Online Summit program is our signature program. It is our top tier premium program, which has helped hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hikers get in a fantastic position for their adventures. Now, for this week, when we're doing this enrollment drive, we're specifically looking for three types of hikers that we want to help. Now, number one is a hiker who has a big trip in their sights. And essentially, they have a big trip booked, they've got it in their calendar, and they want to be making sure they're doing everything they can to ensure a safe, successful, and enjoyable adventure. So, not just being in that situation where they can kind of scrape themselves through and just get them to the stage where they're like, oh my gosh, I just got through it, but ultimately get them in a position where they can actually get through, look up from the trail, take everything around, and just have a really, really fantastic time. Now, the second type of hiker I'm looking for is a hiker who does struggle with some type of ache, pain, or injury, which is holding back their hiking. There are so many hikers out there who struggle with things like knee pain and foot pain and ankle pain, and all of these different things. And a big part of what we do through Summit Strength is helping hikers get on top of this stuff so they can actually get back to properly enjoying their adventures again. So we're looking for hikers who may fall into that category and they're like, you know what, I want to make a change and get out on the trail and be comfortable again. And then finally, also work with a lot of hikers, and we're looking for hikers who may not have a big trip, may not have a particular open pain, but essentially they realize that for the regular hiking they're doing, maybe their local hiking, whatever it may be, they do realize that the physical fitness is kind of holding them back their time on the trail. Maybe they're always getting huffed and puffed on hills. Maybe they can't keep up with their friends or with their group. Maybe they just struggle carrying a pack or struggle in certain sections of terrain or whatever it may be. And ultimately, they just want to be in a position where they can confidently step into any hike which might come across their way. For each of those situations, we've worked with hundreds of hikers, in all honesty, in each of those situations and made a really, really, really good difference. And I would really love to help plenty more hikers, this week. So if this does sound like you, if you fall into any of these categories and you would like to learn a little bit more about this program and ultimately just see if and how may be a good option for you, maybe something you want to step into and maybe explore to see if it may be right for you, all I need you to do is if you are currently watching this on Facebook or you're in our Training for Hiking community group on school, all I need you to do is just comment on this video just down below to say, I'm interested. We can send you a quick message, have a bit of a chat, connect. Alternatively, if you're watching this directly on YouTube, you can email me at rowan@summitstrength.com.au. Again, you can just sort of say, hey, I'm interested. We can have a little bit of a chat from there. So we're going to be doing this enrollment drive all this week. I'm going to be talking about it quite a bit, and hopefully, we'll chat with a few hikers from that. So with that being said, let's come down and let's cover the first question I kind of had sent through. And this was a question just got the other day when I was sort of talking about this program. And so someone responded to one of my emails actually. And they just sort of said, hey, I'm a postmenopausal woman. Is this training going to be appropriate for me? And this is a really, really interesting question because it's something we do kind of get quite a bit, and a lot of people who are reaching out in very, very similar circumstances. So I'm going to explore it a little bit detail right now. Now, essentially, when it comes down to the fitness industry, the context of this, the fitness industry as a whole, if you've listened to my content for a while, you'll kind of know that I have issues with the fitness industry. And in all honesty, in a lot of different situations, the fitness industry does do a disservice for a lot of people. Because one of the things we often see in the fitness industry. And when I'm talking about that, I'm talking about gyms, I'm talking about personal trainers, I'm talking about boot camps, I'm talking about content you find online or whatever it may be. In a general sense, a lot of the advice you'll often see and a lot of the approaches to training that are accessible to a lot of people is typically, given as almost like a one size fits all approach. In the sense of like, if you go on the internet, on your Instagram or Facebook or whatever it may be, a lot of the content and ideas when you're seeing videos and posts and podcasts, you know, the people talking about that stuff, they obviously don't know people's particular circumstances. They're trying to give like a very, very broad context of advice and trying to sort of kind of gather, trying to help as many people as possible. Sometimes that can be a little bit tricky. Or in the sort of situation with group training. Group training is really, really common in the fitness industry because a lot of people like it, a lot of people enjoy it as a business side of things. It can be a good option for people who are wanting to deliver things and have a good community and all of that. A lot of people do group training through group exercise, through boot camps, through HIIT classes, or whatever it may be. This can be all well and good, but when we go into these group training environments, you may be next to 6 people or 10 people or 20 people or 30 people, and you all have different individual circumstances. You all have different needs. You'll have different goals, but you're all doing the same workouts. It's obviously not designed to be personalized to you, but it's all this one size fits all. And yes, a lot of these sessions, there will be adjustments. And sometimes you'll talk to someone and sort of say, hey, I've got a bit of sore knee. What can I do here? Or maybe they'll be aware that you're maybe at a different level of fitness. But there are some adjustments. But in all honesty, this is more of an afterthought than, the kind of core requirement. And that's just the way group training is. And also in personal training, as much as personal training, in the name, it's supposed to be personal. Sometimes, I'm not saying all, I'm not saying the majority, but sometimes this personal training, it isn't quite as much. And essentially what you end up paying for is just time with someone as opposed to getting this personal relationship and personalized program. And there's a lot of trainers out there who, I've talked about this before, where you may go into the gym and you may see them over the space of a few hours and they've got 4 or 5 different clients over half a day, 4 or 5 different clients with different goals, different needs, different circumstances, but they do the same workout on that day with all the people. Or you'll see sort of someone who's like, doing personal training and someone will say, hey, I want to train for this particular thing. And they'll end up getting the same type of approach to training as weight loss, as opposed to general fitness, as opposed to preparing for a race, as opposed to this or whatever it may be. And personal training sometimes ends up being, not super personal. And because of all of this, and most people watching this will probably experience this in one way or another, because of all of this, a lot of people out there have had bad experiences or do have some hesitation around different types of training and whether a training approach is going to be right for them, which is absolutely fair enough. And, 100% you want to make sure things are right for you. 100% you want to make sure things are not going to be wrong for you. And that's absolutely fair enough. But coming back to the original question, there is a big, big, big difference between one size fits all or one size fits most training and personalized training. Because when it comes down to what we do at Summit Strength, what we do through the online Summit program and our other paid for programs, is essentially every single paid for program that we offer at Summit Strength is personalized to the individual. So in a broad sense, every single person we work with is either a hiker or a mountaineer. We don't work with people who are neither of those things. So all of our training, like we're not going to be doing stuff that's, aimed towards weight loss or aimed towards bodybuilding or whatever it may be. Everyone is going to be aiming towards those goals. But beyond that, we know that for hikers, there's a broad spectrum of different people. And we know there are so many different people who may have different needs, different preferences, different histories, different goals, and this and that. And that is where we personalize our training to go through. Now, at a top level, as a generalization, all of our clients are hikers, so they will all be aiming for similar outcomes. In the sense that every single person we work with, we probably do want to build up strength and endurance through the whole body, so they can get through the trail, be comfortable in certain situations. Every single person we know, we want to build up aspects of fitness relevant for hiking. We want to build up their aerobic fitness. We want to build their ability on elevation gain and loss. We want to build their ability to carry a pack and all of that. Pretty much everyone is going to need a slow and gradual build up to the demands of real on trail hiking, and pretty much everyone is going to get some amount of recovery or mobility work through the week. So at a top level, everyone's going to be doing similar things. But while this is sort of similar between everyone through, how we actually go about this and how we apply this and how we program it will very much vary from individual to individual. in the sense of, a typical example of this is exercise selection. In the sense that every single hiker that we work with will have similar areas that we want to work on during our strength training. I always talk about comprehensive strength training programs, making sure we're covering all our bases. So all the people we're going to work with are going to be working their quadriceps, their hamstrings, their glutes, their calves, their upper body, their core, all of these other bits and pieces. Everyone will be working them. But how we actually approach that will vary from person to person. Now, I'll give you a really, really simple example of this. On one end of the scale, say someone comes to us and they're like, hey, I'm a hiker preparing for this big adventure. And this particular person, after we go through our assessments, after we chat, after we get all the information from, we realize this particular person is very, very strong. This particular person has spent years and years and years in a gym environment. They're very comfortable weightlifting. They're very comfortable with lots of weight. They're very comfortable pushing themselves and this and that. And in this particular situation, if we have someone like that, we may say, okay, we want to develop quadriceps strength in a way that's going to be relevant for our hiking. So one option we could go down in this particular situation is doing something like a low box barbell step up,
This
which
exercise,
is
you're either
a decent option where you're loading up quite a bit of weight on your back. You've got a low box and you're going up and down, up and down. Now, this can be a really, really good option for developing the quadriceps. Obviously, it looks very, very specific to hiking and this and that. And for that particular person, this type of thing could be very appropriate and very, very effective. We're well aware that this may not be appropriate for everyone. So, we may sort of look at the other end of the scale. And we may sort of say, okay, someone's come to us, they're a hiker, they're training for a similar adventure. But this particular person, they've never really done much strength training in the past. They never really lifted weights or whatever it may be. And they want to get strong. They want to build up their endurance. We still want to build up their quads. But how are we going to do that and what's going to be different? So we may sort of say, okay, this person, maybe we'll start off with something like this, which is like a medium step up of a medium box, which is just your body weight. It's just going up a relatively small step and you're working up and down, up and down. This and this, same exercise, but just different levels of intensity. And that's kind of what we're looking in regards to personalizing this. And then, of course, there's sort of people in between. There's a million and one different levels of fitness and all of that. So then we kind of fill in the gaps and we make sure the exercises we're choosing for the individual is going to work there. Now, a few other examples of this intensity, like everyone will be a bit different in regards to how hard and how difficult the training is going to be. When it comes down to, this, pretty much every hiker at top level is going to want some type of pack exposure. Even if you're not training for a full pack, even if you're only training day packs, getting some type of pack exposure can be really, really useful. And again, for someone who's on that far end of the scale, someone who's super strong, someone who's been doing lots and lots of pack training already, someone who's really, really comfortable carrying a pack, we may say, okay, we're going to do some pack training, but maybe we'll start at 7 kilos or 10 kilos or even 20 kilos. I've had people who have done 6 months of pack training before we've worked together and they're fully confident with 20 kilos on the back. We start them there and then build up from that. But then on the flip side, again, people who may be at the other end of the side of things, who hasn't done a huge amount of pack carrying, we may just start them up with 1 to 2 kilos and build them up. Again, it's the same sort of principles, the same sort of idea, but it's personalized to the individual. And then some hikers may need some more emphasis on certain areas. So depending on their goals and what we identify in our assessments. So some people may need some exposure to quicker walking. Some people are like, hey, a priority of mine is to improve my speed. I have to hit certain time targets. So we hone in on that. Some people don't. Some people may need more balance training. Some people don't. There's a million and one examples of this around how this all comes through. And then on top of that, there's other things. There's like time commitments. Different people will be able to commit to different amount of time per week that they can train. Different people want to train in different situations, at home, outdoors, in the gym. Different people have different equipment access. Different people have different personal preferences. For example, some people love, 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 love doing certain exercises. Some people hate them, or whatever it may be. So coming back to the original question, ultimately with this type of stuff, as long as you're a hiker and as long as you're aiming for hiking and you're trying to use training to help with your hiking, then our programs are probably going to be appropriate to you. Whether or not it's the right option for you, like, whether it's going to fit into what you want and what you're looking for and all of that, that's sort of we need to dive into and have a conversation and learn about that. But, when it comes down to whether you're a post-menopausal woman, whether you're a first-time hiker, whether you're an older male or a younger male or a younger woman or whatever it may be, doesn't really matter. As long as you're a hiker, because this is all personalized, we can make it appropriate to you. So coming down to that, if you ever wondered, hopefully that gives you a little extra context. Um, Next up, as we're going through, as we are coming through, anyone who is watching live, whether on Facebook or YouTube or whatever it may be, if you do have any questions you would like covered today, feel free to plug them in chat. I'm happy to cover them for anything that may pop up. Now, another question I got sent through just the other day was someone asking, what is the difference between your coaching program? And again, there's a few different questions about the coaching program because I've been talking about it quite a bit this week. What's the difference between the coaching program and the Couch to Summit program, which I can download off for free from your website? So if you haven't come across the Couch to Summer program before, this is a sort of a free program that we have on our website that you can download. Basically, it's a very, very, very simple program. I think my colors are going to look really weird. Oh, no. Oh, yep. Looks a little bit weird here. I don't know why my colors are all out, but either way, you can kind of get the general idea. Yeah, for this particular program, it just sort of talks through some basics around training for hiking. And it gives you a really, really simple 12-week program covering some strength training, some mobility stuff, some cardio stuff, and some hiking stuff. And it gives you sort of 12 weeks worth of workouts, which a hiker can use. Now, the idea behind the Cash to Summer program and what the difference between that and our coaching program is essentially the Couch to Summit program is a pre-made program. I was just talking before about this whole one size fits all thing or one size fits many thing. And that's kind of what this Couch to Summit is. The Couch to Summit program is not personalized in any way to the individual, your needs, your goals, or your situations. Yes, it's personalized to hikers, but as we said before, there are so many different hikers out there. There's so many different levels of fitness, so many different levels of confidence, so many different individual factors which differentiate from hiker to hiker. So really the whole idea around this program, the Cash to Summer, is designed just to give some people some general guidance, just an introduction in regards to this is what structured training looks like. For some people, this may be all they need. Maybe they just need some really, really simple things like, that makes sense. That's kind of a light bulb moment I can work through. For a lot of people, it may not be right. The exercises may not be appropriate for them. It may not be sort of like get them to where they want to be. They may not be able to do quite as much or they want to do more training or whatever it may be. And ultimately, we offer this Cash to Summit program for free, and you can download it off our website for free. And if you just go to summitstrength.com.au, it's like Couch to Summit, you can check it out. Is that it? Yeah, that's the link where you can download it. I'll pop it into chat if anyone wants to have a look at it. But yeah, basically the reason why the Cash to Summit is free is because that's what it's worth. In all honesty, it's not worth your money for that type of thing. It is free because that is what it's worth. And the difference between, something that's pre-made like that and something that's a bit more personalized where we actually consider all of these different things and we adjust it around you is like the difference between, if you're sick and going on to Google and like, hey, I've got these symptoms, what's going on? And actually going to talk to a doctor and they'd be like, what have you eaten? What have you done? What's going on? This and that. Like, this and happen. Um, it's just chalk and cheese, completely different. So if you ever wondered what the difference is, hopefully that gives you a little extra insight. So with that being said, as we're coming through, if anyone is watching live, did have any follow-up questions or anything like that, or anything you want covered, feel free to plug into chat as we go through. Now, with that being said, I actually have one more question that I've pre-prepared, which I'm going to cover, and then we will sort of see if anything else comes through for us to cover today. But essentially, this particular question is all about assessing your training. And this is a really, really, really relevant topic for so many hikers out there. And essentially, the inspiration of this was, the question was, I do quite a bit of training in a week, but I never really know if this is the right thing to help my hiking. Do you have any tips for me to help figure this out? And the context for this and where this is really relevant is there are a lot of hikers out there who are actually doing quite a lot of training in a week. For some hikers, I have to talk about this. A lot of people are like, hey, I'm barely doing anything, or I don't really do any training. I just go out and hike, and that's fine. If that's your situation, this isn't super relevant for you. However, on the flip side, there are a lot of hikers out there who, do a lot in the week. Maybe they're doing lots of walking, or they're doing stair sessions, or they're doing HIIT classes, or group exercise, or strength training, or working with a trainer, or whatever it may be. And a lot of people out there are putting in a lot of time and a lot of effort into their training, and they're dedicating a lot, but they're really unsure if it is actually crossing over into their hiking. There's a little bit of a question mark. They're like, hey, I think it's helping, but I'm not really sure. And, in all honesty, it can be a little bit tough with stuff to differentiate between what we call gym fitness and what we call hiking fitness. Because when it comes down to gym fitness, it's very, very easy to see if you're improving. You can move more weight. You can push quicker on intervals. You can do more in a class or whatever it may be. You just generally feel more fit. But there can sometimes be a bit of difference between this and the hiking fitness. And ultimately, if you are a hiker and if you're in the situation where you're like, well, I'm doing all this training and I really do want this to improve my hiking, like that's kind of one of the main reasons why I do this, then we do want to be really, really crystal clear on if what you're doing for you right now is working for you or not. If you're in the situation where like, well, I don't really care. I'm pretty happy where my hiking is right now. I just do general training just to generally keep healthy and fit. That's fine. But if you are trying to link your training to your hiking, this is really, really important. So typically the best way to sort of figure out if your training is working for you is use it to judge your performance on the trail. Now, sometimes people ask me like, hey, what's a good fitness assessment? What's a good VO2 max? What's this? What's that? What can I do to kind of figure things out? And there are loads and loads and loads of fitness assessments out there. There's loads and loads and loads of generally looking at where you're at. But a lot of that is really hit and miss for hiking. And I could give you 10 different fitness assessments and say, hey, if you do this, this will, you can be clear that this is improving, whatever it may be. But the way to link it to our hiking is we kind of want to actually link it to our hiking and make sure that we're actually judging our performance on the trail and see if it's improved. So that's what we're going to talk about. Now, one thing I will sort of say is what I'm about to go through. If you're trying to judge your training and the effectiveness of your training, you really, really, really need to make sure if you're doing that you're actually giving your training, whatever you're doing, a fair shake. And what I mean by that is a lot of people will go into a training program. They'll have all these intentions. They'll be like, hey, I want to improve X, Y, and Z. And they'll say, hey, I'm going to commit to doing 3 sessions a week or 4 sessions a week, something like that. And over the weeks, they're just really inconsistent. And they maybe do 2 or 3 weeks and then drop off for a couple of weeks and then this and that and drop off. Or maybe they like wanted to do four sessions in a week, but they end up just doing 2 sessions a week or whatever it may be. So what I'm about to talk through is really only relevant if you've completed at least 6 weeks of consistent training, whatever this is. If you haven't actually done the consistent training, then you probably need to consider how am I going to find consistency? And that's a whole different conversation. But this is judging consistent training. And the reason why I say 6 weeks is that's kind of a good timeline where it gives you the beginnings and the inklings around how you're improving. In the sense, if you're just looking at 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 weeks, yeah, some people can see improvements, but when we're looking at strength, when we're looking at fitness, when we're looking at stuff on the trail, sometimes it can take a little bit longer to kick into effect. The flip side of things, I'll often say for my hikers that I work with, typically the best results is when we can string together 8 or 9 or 10 or 11 or 12 weeks of training consistently. That's when everything begins to snowball. But, you don't really want to have to wait 12 weeks until you can make an assessment if things are working for you or not. So 6 weeks of consistent training is a good idea. Now, essentially from there, a really, really easy way of self-assessing is just asking yourself these questions here. Ask yourself, at the end of the 6 weeks, are you in a position where you can hike longer distances on the trail for either the same level or less difficulty or comfort? That doesn't really make sense. But what I mean by that is, can you either do longer distances at the same level of difficulty, and meaning it feels just as hard as you were doing before, or does it feel easier, but you're doing longer distances? Because even if things feel just as difficult as they were before, but you're actually doing more, that's an improvement. So can you hike longer distances at the same level or less of difficulty? Next question, can you hike longer distances on the trail at the same level or less levels of pain? Some people, when they're going through a pain prevention journey, they'll be like, oh, I've done 6 weeks. I'm still got a bit of a discomfort, like things aren't working for me. But if you're actually doing more distance at the same level of pain, or even if the pain's gone down and you can do more, that's improvement. Can you hike with a heavier pack for the same distance or longer? Clear sign of improvement. Are you feeling more confident on certain sections of the trail and typically sections that gave you trouble before? Steep descents, do you feel more comfortable with those? Do you feel more comfortable with a rougher terrain, with river crossings or whatever it may be? This one is a little bit sometimes harder to gauge because confident, it's very, very subjective. It's very, very kind of up there, but it's definitely something to think about. Is your breathing feeling more controlled when climbing up steep descents? Are you not quite as huffed and puffed? You're a little bit more controlled, or does it take longer for you to get out of breath? And on top of that, when you get to the top of a steep ascent, I should say ascent there, is your breathing recovering quicker? So when you get to the top, do you no longer have to take 2 or 3 minutes to catch your breath? Is it coming back in a minute or 30 seconds or whatever it may be? Are you recovering quicker from fatigue or pain after hikes? So if you're in the situation at the end of a hike and you get to the end of the day and you're like, oh my God, at night I'm just collapsing in a bed and I'm knackered. But 6 weeks later, you're like, well, I'm doing the same hikes, but actually I'm feeling a bit better. That's improvement. Or the same thing with pain. Like you do finish a hike and then 2 to 3 days afterwards, your knees are absolutely killing you. But that's recovering quicker, or it's not even there. That's improvement. And are you finishing your hikes with more energy? Are you doing the same types of hikes, but you get to the end and you're like, ah, I actually have more energy than I used to? Any of these is a really, really good judgment of improvement. Obviously, sometimes it can be a little bit tricky, like to sort of say, hey, objectively, I have more energy. How do I know I have more energy compared to 6 weeks ago? Sometimes it can be a little bit tricky, but if you really think about this, if you're intentional about this, it's usually, doable to make up, uh, doable to figure out. And then ultimately, if you're in the situation where you've been following a program, and we're sort of saying before, you're doing a training program and you're trying to improve your hiking, and you've been consistent with that for about 6 weeks, ideally at the 6 week mark, you should be able to answer yes to, three, maybe more of these. And if you can answer yes to that, happy days, you're improving. Like, yes, any type of improvement, even if you only answer one yes to one of these, that's still improvement. But, if you're really, really honing in on your training, probably want to see a few of these. It's not a perfect assessment, but it can really go a long way. And ultimately, if you cannot answer yes to one of these, or maybe it's only one or two and you're putting in all of this time, all of this investment into things, this is probably a sign that your training may need to be adjusted a little bit. It may be a case of, maybe the cardio you're doing is just not super relevant for hiking, in the sense of maybe you're just doing lots of HIIT classes and you're like, well, I'm still like just my breathing's not improving on hills. Maybe I need to adjust that. Or maybe you're going and doing treadmill sessions and you're doing lots and lots of walking, but you're still not improving. So maybe something needs to change. Or maybe the strength you're doing is just kind of misaligned with your goals. Maybe you're doing a lot of strength stuff, but maybe it's a bit more of a bodybuilder approach than like kind of what we want. Or maybe you're just doing the same workout and the same exercises again and again and again, and it's just not progressing. Or maybe you're just focusing on one area of your training. You're just doing walking and hiking and just lots and lots of that, and you're not improving and not working on the areas. There's a lot of the different things, but like you can take yourself through this kind of process of questioning and just ask yourself, am I improving? And if not, okay, what can I adjust? What can I tweak? And how can I move you forward? Because ultimately, if you're a hiker and you are putting all this time, attention, and effort into your training and you're trying to link that to your hiking, we want to be confident that it's actually paying off. So that's enough on that particular topic. If anyone who is watching live does have any questions they would like covered, I've kind of worked through my list of things that I want to cover today. So if you do have any questions, feel free to plug it into chat and I'll do my best to help. I should have brought myself a glass of water because I'm losing my voice after half an hour. But with that being said, if there aren't any other particular questions, as I said, I've kind of worked through everything that I needed to cover today. Just while wrapping up for today, I'll just sort of come back to what I said initially. If you haven't seen already, I am doing that big enrollment drive for our signature program, the online summer program. If you are in a situation where you are looking for a little bit of help with your training, you wouldn't mind that personalized approach, you wouldn't mind honing things in and really, really making a big difference, whether it's for a specific trip you have coming up, whether it's for getting on top of ankle pain, or just improving your regular hiking. I would love to chat with you. If you did want to learn a little bit more about this, if you're watching this on Facebook or school, just drop a comment on the video below, just with the words "I'm interested." We'll send you a message to have a bit of a chat. Alternatively, if you're directly on YouTube, you can email me at rowan@summitstrength.com.au. Again, just you can send the words "I'm interested," and we can find a bit of time to chat from there. But with that being said, that will probably do me for today if no other questions have come through. I hope this has been useful for a few people. Hope it's given a few people insight. And we'll be back in action on Friday for the next Q&A. So anyone watching in the future, if you do have any questions you would like covered in a future one, feel free, send them over to me, pop them in the comments, send me an email, whatever it may be, and we'll take it from there. But aside from that, hope everyone's enjoyed this. Hope you have a lovely, lovely day, and we'll talk to you all very, very soon.